Good morning. Welcome back to another segment, another episode of Fit AF. That's fitness and fun. And I'm here this morning with a good longtime friend of mine. His name is Fred Mendiola. And, Fred, a little bit disappointed. I wanted to go out this morning with you. Would have been really cool, really nostalgic. But there is a high surf advisory, so it would not be responsible. I'm not going to speak for this gentleman here. I know for most people who get into the water, they like to take their risk, but please just keep that in mind. And that's the reason why I'm not going to be going out. But really, the reason is I'm not in shape enough to go and hit up this surf out here. It's pretty intense. Fred, so, we want to talk about the history of surf and your experience surfing and things like of that nature. And we'll address this right away. What was your first thought when you came out and you saw the waters today?
Oh man, immediately I thought, wow, today's a challenging day for anybody that's involved in marine sports, in water sports. The whole west side of Guam and the northwest side has, like what you were saying, Jules, it's like a high surf advisory, hazardous currents, super powerful waves. Just behind us here, there's waves that are, for surfers, we call it super hollow, like tubes and stuff. And that kind of makes the wave much more intense and powerful. And it's only the type of conditions that people have like a ton of experience dealing with it. That would probably be the only people that I would recommend to try this type of surf. But for the other ocean goers, I would say stay away from the big waves and the currents right now. Right now, this morning, it's low tide still, so we can actually see the reef popping up like just inches underneath these big waves, and that could do a lot of damage to boaters and also to people who are on the reefs swimming or surfing or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. We've surfed for years. Of course, I stopped years ago. I think the last time I really, really hit the water was close to 10 years ago. So, man, but it's kind of like riding a bicycle. But back to his point, what he was saying, and if Asha could if you're looking at the waves right now, let's kind of watch this surfer. Oh, just under the lip. Barely made it. Barely made that bottom turn. Yeah, almost got hit. Here goes another one. And so these guys, they have enough experience where they feel they have that. Oh, there he goes. Oh man, he got axed, but
Hammered.
yeah, it looks crazy. But depending on your level of surfing, something like that could have been quote unquote fun, right?
Right.
Whereas, and that that's part of it. You talked about the intensity. You talked about kind of like the danger aspect to it. Right side in particular gets really hit by the currents when the surf gets bigger. A lot of it has to do with this jetty, and you can see how the waters some waves are coming in this way, some waves are coming at us this way, and then of course you got the water that's rushing back out. And so really, if you're a right side right now, you'd have to paddle just to stay in place, just to catch the wave. So when the wave comes, you're pretty much exhausted taking off. Left side seems pretty chill. There's two guys out there. But of course, when those waves come in, left side, the bowl section super heavy, that wave super hollow. I particularly surf right side, and then I'd go to left side every now and then, and
Yeah,
I'd kind of
I
just catch
remember
the
those
bowl
days.
side of it, and
Yeah.
slowly kind of creep down. But really, and Fred's versed at both sides. Um, Man, tell us some of your experience. One of your best experiences out here at boat. And I'll go ahead and give you the mic.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Jules. My best experiences would be definitely when like with Guam surfing, you get to surf with a lot of your relatives and your best friends, your closest friends, and so when the surf is up, like from this typhoon that's going over the northern Marianas right now, um, the memories of catching awesome waves all day long when we had no obligations and stress and
Oh
stuff.
man,
Those would bring back the best memories.
early
And
20 days.
you, Julius, you remember those days when that's all we did was get up, check the surf, go out, take a break, get water and lunch, come back, surf again, go rest, and then side talk story with everyone. We didn't even check our phones back then because there weren't phones around.
Yeah,
So
most of us didn't have phones if there were. Yeah.
yeah. So it was really like simple life, just checking the waves, checking the wind and the tide, and also just seeing what's happening with the swells that are coming in or dissipating. And so I would have to say this spot right behind us is definitely my favorite spot in Guam. Like, it's so beautiful, and it's really but it can have its nightmare
Oh man,
days, and we know I've had.
I had to get rescued out here once.
Yeah, me too.
Channel closeout day.
Me too, exactly. The same kind of day as you, Julius. I remember my worst experience was probably being alone when everyone went in and they didn't know I was still out there, and I had my board broken in half and the channel closed out, and then luckily a friend of mine just came to have a closer look at the waves, and he saw me getting pulled out through this channel here where all the boats launch out for the trolling and parasailing, and I couldn't get in for the life of me. Like, it took me over an hour and a half, and finally he had an extra board and he jumped in and rushed out there and helped me get in. So, and I've surfed my whole life, and I've swam pretty much since I was out of diapers. So you can tell that this place has a ton of power, and the currents on Guam are really tricky too. They're tricky with the way the barrier reefs are set up and the lagoons. Yeah, it's just it's something that you have to really be versed at, learning from the locals and the like Saina, our elders, the older surfers and stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's a level of aggression, when we talk about regulating the surf, and it's its own sub community, and really it's not like the guys like to fight. It's more of the fact that when you look at a day like this, and you see those higher intensity levels, versus those fun 2-foot days, and it's just nice and like crispy. I like the way you used that term earlier. But on a day like today, this is part of what really drives that surfer's energy. It's that the more intense the surf, the more quote unquote fun you have, because you realize what kind of danger you're putting yourself in, what you're facing. I mean, that's Mother Nature out there. That's like one wave coming in. Oh man, did you see that? That was beautiful. One wave coming in is like somebody dumping an entire swimming pool of water on top of you, and you're riding that energy just like this guy is about to take off. Bottom turn, slotted. Is he gonna make it? Oh, yeah, he got chowed. See, that's why bodyboarders were able to get deeper, because we're laying down, we can fit inside those, or we can get on a knee. Right? One thing the stand-ups will always have, though, is a speed. Stand-ups have that speed. That's amazing. I've been out here some days. I've seen Fred. I've seen you catch some waves. You disappear, and you're like, oh, and then boop, he just pops out, and you're like, ah. And because there's that similarity, right, that brings us all to the surf. It's like you're connected to that rider when you see him on the wave, because you know what it feels like you're out there. Boat comes in like this. Usually when they're going out, then on right side they'll create a wake on that wave, and it creates this funky lip. Particularly if you're on a bodyboard, or if you have really good stand-up skills, you'll take advantage of that little wedge that comes in and try to launch it. Heck yeah, it's nuts. You talked about your day, very similar day. I was a kook back then. What we mean by kook is mentality. You don't really know what's going on. You don't know. And when we go back to the regulating aspect of it, everybody knows how dangerous it is out there for the most part. If you don't, and you act like you don't know that it's dangerous out there, to me, that's really what a kook is. It's like somebody who is ignorant of the dangers in the surf, so they can't fully appreciate the fun that you can derive from the sport itself. And so we try to regulate those people, because not only are they putting themselves in danger, but they're potentially putting other surfers in danger. I remember one time, because Fred is such a peaceful guy. This was like way back in the day. It was a tourist who came out, and we try to be nice, especially with respect to your business, right? Yeah. You're trying to educate the tourists in our water so that they can integrate themselves here if they want to come out and surf, right? They understand the culture of surfing in Guam. He dropped in, and he was dropping in on everybody that day. I think there was only like 4 of us. It was me, you, Mark Roberto, and I can't remember, it was 1 or 2 others. And you actually like went off on him. You got pissed. Now, to his credit, he didn't like fight him or anything, but he was letting him know like, what you're doing is not cool. Let's turn around and catch this guy, right? Oh, okay, never mind. He went over. In the back, is there anything in the back? No. But yeah, I freaked out. And it didn't necessarily, it changed my perception of you, Fred, in that it's like, okay, yeah, this sport is real. And just because somebody is nice all the time doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to become that regulator out here in the water, so to speak. Because again, they don't only threaten their safety, they threaten the safety of the other riders. What is one, aside from that moment, I can't imagine too, you being out there alone. And ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at the channel right now. What we mean by channel closeout is, you see how big those waves are on left side, and then there's waves on right side. Imagine the wave is so big that it is breaking in the channel from left side all the way to right side. And that would be your left. You're looking out your left side, or your left is left side, your right is right side. So the wave is so huge that the channel means nothing. The wave is breaking in the channel is closing out, meaning the wave is almost like 2 stories high. It's ridiculous. Then you're trapped without a board. Mother Nature and her current are pulling you out towards the deep blue. Oh, that's a beautiful one. Woo!
Wow, looking like kind of like pipeline in the North Shore right now.
Yeah, yeah, looking like pipeline in the North Shore.
Wow.
And imagine that current is pulling you out to the deep blue. Waves are giant. Unlike Fred, I wasn't alone. Joito and Tony Pham were out at left side. They were killing it, and I was getting killed at right side. I got caught in the impact zone, and I kind of just like, well, there's nothing I can do. And then something inside me said, hey, you're like 19 years old. At least try and fight for your life. So I swam up. As soon as I popped up, Joito actually paddled over, and he was in the corner of the right side channel, and he was like, Jules! And I was like, Joito! He's like, I can't go there. You have to swim to me. Yeah, so like, it took me like 5 minutes, you know, and he was encouraging me like, come on, come on, come on. And then as soon as I get to him, he's like, now swim. I was like, in my head, that's what I just did to get here. Super exhausted, but he understood. So it's like, we're not done yet. We need to get out of danger's way. And so, you know, if it wasn't for Joito, if you're out there and you're watching this, thank you for that day of encouragement. And then we went out. There was a parasail boat there waiting to come in because it was so big, you know. There's a Japanese woman. She was throwing up all over the place. The husband's like, we got to go in. And the captain was like, do you want to die? And he was like, no. And he's like, then we're not going in right now. And then, you know, of course, Joito was like, you good, Jules? I'm like, yeah. And then he paddles back over to the left side, starts catching waves, you know what I mean? And this is like, I'm like fearing for my life. I was traumatized for 2 months after that. Rich Napoleon was like, hey, don't stay out of the water. Make sure you get back in there. You know, so he kind of slowly brought me and reintegrated me back into the surf. And because whenever I was in the water and I turn around and see the little swell coming in, to me, it was that giant channel closeout swell that got me. And eventually I got over it and I started to get back into the water. But really, you know, high surf advisory. So if you don't have that experience, don't test the waters because they will destroy you. I guarantee it. Man, I guess if you could tell us a little bit about, because left side looks really good right now, and it's, you know, she can be seductive like that, Mother Nature and her beautiful waves. What would it be like to surf on a day like this at left side? Go ahead and take the mic.
It's okay. It's super exhilarating and challenging, and you want to make sure, like you're dialed in, and you've been training. You're in good shape. You have the right equipment for sure, and then also having, like what Julius was saying earlier, having partners that, you know, can put themselves in harm's way to come after you if so be it, and you end up in a situation. So you don't want to just show up and like, oh my God, the surf is pumping, it looks so great, do the what I call the 30-second check, where you just look for 30 seconds and then you rip off your t-shirt and put on your rash guard and sunblock, and you run out there without any planning or any kind of like idea of what you're about to get yourself into. Because Mother Nature, like Julius was saying, can be super deceiving, and she changes her moods very quickly. All of us here in Guam know we can have a beautiful sunny day. We're barbecuing with our primos, and within days we have a condition 1 typhoon, super typhoon bearing down on us. So that's how the surf is also. And yep, if you do get through all the challenges of being prepared, then you get to enjoy the beautiful surf, the beautiful power, and you know the excitement and adrenaline rush of riding waves like this, for sure.
Just to give the viewers out there who, go ahead and hold on to the mic, I'll ask you questions. To give the viewers out there an idea who don't surf, how long is the actual ride, left side and right side, and then compare the two?
Okay. On the day when everything is hitting right with left side, when it hits the top of the reef, like the corner, where it should ideally hit, which
is sort of like the reef line, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
A corner here, and then it comes into the channel over here.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you get it at the right part, at the beginning of the wave, you can count like at least little under 6 seconds, maybe 6-second thrill ride from start to finish. Some days, like a few days ago, when there's swell coming out of the south, southwest, and west, southwest, you can sometimes squeeze a few more seconds on out of the wave. Um, but on other swell directions, like now what we're seeing here is a northwest swell and then eventually a north swell. It's just a short thrill ride. Like it could even be less than 5 seconds, and it's intense from start to finish. And right side, on the other hand, is what we surfers we call a slab wave. A slab wave is where it breaks in like really shallow water, and the reef is just inches below, and the wave stands when you're not ready, and then it just tosses you down the drop, and you free fall down most times when it's big like this, and you'll be done in like 3 seconds. But within those 3 seconds, it actually feels like a minute
Yeah, it
because
takes forever.
it
In
does.
my mind, you know.
Just the drop alone
Yeah.
is everything. Like they say, time slows down when you're riding a wave, especially when you're inside the tube of the wave. It really, time is expanded, at least in your perception, because it feels really good, and it's really exhilarating.
Do you think it's because you're like hyper aware of everything that's going on? That
Exactly.
You have that feeling that time is slowing down. Energy is trapped in the water. I'm coming from right side perspective, and it's rising over you. You're kind of, I mean, the bottom turn, you're watching it come up, you're trying to pull, line yourself up, water starts to throw over you. And then once you're inside, not only are you hyper aware of all of this activity, but then you hear the sounds, right? In that barrel, it's like a wow.
Exactly,
So
Joe.
it's hard to explain. You just kind of, the head cams now, if we could get the microphones, with the head cams and just really hear everything.
Even Asha knows. She's ridden a few waves in her life,
That's
but
right.
I've never gotten barrel ever in my life.
But like what Jules was saying, it's like your senses are really your senses are awakened when you take off on a wave and you start riding it. All of a sudden, everything from sounds to what you're seeing to the water splashing up against the bottom of your board, you can hear the sound of that.
Woo!
Wow.
Yeah! There you go.
Oh my gosh.
That
was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some bigger ones.
Oh.
Yeah, this swell's supposed to get even bigger, and it's going to be hectic. There's going to be some good waves, but definitely some super challenging conditions, right, Jules?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, you got to be super on your A game to ride these waves. I mean, they're so perfectly beautiful and tempting, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into, right?
Yeah. They're like an Egu island girl. It's like she's beautiful, and it will say the ride is like the relationship. It's just intense, and if you do the wrong thing, you get it in the head, right? Or when I say if you do the wrong thing, you get smacked in the head. If you do the right thing, then you get to pull inside, and you get to experience the wonder that is. And then it's a really good metaphor, because then the whole time you're kind of trying to maintain your line. You know what I mean? That as the energy comes up, the wave comes up, it's trying to suck you over. So you just got to make the adjustments. Right. Yeah, play your cards just right. I like the way you put that. And so again, we want to emphasize the safety. What's the worst thing that you've seen in surf? You don't have to get in gory detail, but like when it comes to the safety aspect of it, when things get really heavy, how bad have you seen it get?
Oh gosh, I've probably the worst I've had to have experienced or seen was actually I didn't really see it. I was out at a really big session, a big day in Fiji at a world famous break called Cloud Break, and it was just mainly professional surfers or big wave riders that challenge those kind of conditions. And there's the boats keep a head count, and by the afternoon when we were done with our session, we all knew that the surf was like much more than most surfers can handle in their lifetimes. But one surfer, and he's super fit, travels to surf the best waves in the world, but just somehow disappeared through one of these sets of waves. And unbeknownst to us, like by the time we loaded the boats and did a head count, there was no trace of the surfer, not his board or him. And weeks later, I found out from the operators of that the surfing boats, the charter boats, I asked someone that knew one of the captains, and I asked, "Did you ever find that older, like Australian man, the one that's really fit and rides really nicely on big waves?" And they said, "No, man, no, Fred. They never found a trace of him." So, like, I've seen people get cut and get hit by boards, and even I've seen beginners get in accidents in really small ways where boards are hitting each other, and those can be lethal too. But to go to your boat with all the surfers, and then all the boats are checking in, all the surfers that paddled out that morning, and to find out that one surfer didn't come back, and it's like kind of a really kind of a sad, definitely a super sad experience, but something that sticks with me like for the rest of my life for sure. Yeah.
It's a very surreal moment. You come in and that's like, yeah, it was dangerous, and you guys are like, oh, you're still in kind of good spirits because like, man, we made it, and then to find out somebody didn't, that's the reminder. Ah, he missed the takeoff. Fred and I both were like, look, Asha, turn around. But yeah, that's, and we've had incidences like that in Guam, not necessarily with individuals in the surf. Look at that barrel, raw. Whether it be fishermen or people, wanting to get a closer look at when the waves are really gigantic and they're smashing up against cliff lines, and all it takes is that one, I don't want to say that one giant splash of water, and all you see is whitewash, and then when the whitewash clears, the person is gone. And so again, when we're talking about coming out and surfing, you know yourself, and if you've never put yourself in a condition, even like today, where it doesn't seem so crazy compared to what you were just talking about, it's still nuts. Look at the channel. The channel is normally, the same color as the ocean. But right now, it looks like your washing machine, mid-cycle. And you don't want to be like the clothes in that mid-cycle where you see them go towards the center of the agitator and then they get sucked down. There's no difference between what's going on in your washing machine and what's happening out there. And the big difference is that that's larger than life out there in the water. And you see how the boats quickly, normally they don't go through the channels so quickly, but on a day like this, they want to get out really fast, right? They don't want to get caught inside in any of the giant sets. And then there's that harmony too, just to kind of bring a little bit more levity back to the conversation. If boats go out too quick, surfers kind of get upset, especially when it's a nice, clean, classic day, like, oh, you're ruining the waves. So there's usually that mutual respect, though, between the captains of the boats. Because a lot of the deckhands and some of the captains also surf. Oh, man.
Oh, here we go. There's a good set.
Yeah. There's only 2 guys out there. If there were like a couple more, then we'd probably see more frequency in them taking off. But maybe he'll take off on this one. Yeah, go. Ah.
Ooh, look at the full weight going through that.
Yeah.
Board, just like, right?
Yeah.
Well,
from a bodyboarder, it's like you could totally take advantage of that.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
Yeah. So that's what I was talking about earlier, folks, with that wedge. Oh, but yeah, bodyboard all the way on that one. Because you can afford to skip on a wave when you're on a bodyboard, but if you're standing up, your feet aren't strapped in unless you're getting towed in, like Laird Hamilton or somebody, one of those OG guys. I haven't kept up, so I don't know the names of like the current surfers, but on a bodyboard, yeah, still right, tends to be. But on a bodyboard, I used to call it like the 4x4, of surfing, because you can get super deep. You don't have the same speed, but you can get deep. You can get on one knee. You can use your bodyboard to protect you when you're aware enough and you know you're going to get slammed on the reef. You put it in front of you. You have a surfboard. It's like, that's like a, $300 to $600 investment?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Easily.
That's like the jet fighter of surfing. And so you got the speed, but you got to be able to maintain the balance. It's gnarly. That first time I actually tried to get on a stand-up board, I was like, whoa, this perspective is different. Bodyboarding, I'm like constantly connected to the board, but in stand-up surfing, you're like getting off of it, standing up. Needless to say, I wasn't successful, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to the bodyboard. And plus, it was out of my budget. I couldn't maintain it at the time. I guess we can go ahead and wrap this up, man. I know you got things to do. You have some clients down at Talafofo. Probably should have went down there. Might be better for me. I'm a right side rider, and usually by the time right side's blown out, then I just know that I don't go to left side because I leave it to guys like Fred. But again, high surf advisory, you got to take that in consideration. Any last words for the viewers out there when it comes to surfing? Lotus Surf Shop, thank you guys so much. You had the gear ready for me. I don't have any gear anymore. You're going to have me use it. You guys got bodyboards, you got surfboards, you got the surf gear. You guys are located in Tumon. Go ahead and tell us a little bit, last message, tell us a little bit about Lotus, the history of Lotus. You're the owner now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I found out he owned it. I was like,
From
what?
the bottom all the way.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about that, actually.
Oh, Lotus.
That's like the surfing industry side. That's the business side of surfing.
Yeah, Lotus has been around since 1988, and our big hit back then, but I was still living abroad, was Stussy,
Yeah.
like brand Stussy. Yeah, the minute my former boss, Nico Yu, brought in Stussy, it was like, it hit hard on Guam, and we carried that and amongst a whole host of surf brands that were just starting to, and skate brands and streetwear brands that were starting to make their mark in the fashion world, I guess. So anyway, and then I joined Lotus. I originally came here to Guam with an EMT license, thinking I'd be at the fire department, which I still kick myself, like I really wanted to go with Guam Fire, but there was nothing open back then in the fire for like 4 years. So I stayed at Lotus in the surf industry, worked my way up, started a surfing school, got the certifications for that, and pretty much did the surfing lessons and the coaching, and then learned about how to do the retail shop. And eventually Nico wanted to go on to other ventures, so I stuck it out and hung on with Lotus. And yeah, it's still there, and we're still hanging on. And as any other business, there's tons of challenges. Don't get as much time in the surf that I want to. But if you ever need a surf lesson and you want to surf safely, or get information that will help you enjoy surfing or bodyboarding or paddleboarding or anything like that, and not get yourself in a situation where you're getting injured or you're getting screamed at by surfers or locals that have been out there like every day for 20 years. So yeah, we have the perfect place for you to come and chill out with us. And that's pretty much it. But I would say two things as my biggest words of advice to surfers and non-surfers when you approach the ocean is just be super humble, take in as much information and knowledge as you can, and if you're in doubt, don't go out. Yeah, pretty much that would sum everything up.
I didn't know that you had an EMT and you were going to join the fire department, so that's kind of interesting, folks, if you think about it. Oh man, that guy just got barreled. Sweet, and he made it out. Distraction, squirrel! But you came here with the intention of joining the fire department, and you ended up making your career from fire to water.
Yeah, that might be a good t-shirt design.
From fire to water.
Fire to water.
And that'll be the documentary we do on Fred. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us, Fit AF. Man, we had every intention of getting out into water, but of course, I mean, that's the nature of surfing as a sport in general. You try to have competitions, you set it up, I mean, like, it's flat. Cancel competition, right, or do what you can. And that's the way it is. So if you're thinking about becoming a surfer, if you will, or taking up the sport, you know where to go to get started, to get all your gear, to get lessons. And then you see part of the challenges that you face in that. Sometimes it's just too intense for you, right? So take that lesson. We'll see you next week for another segment of Fit AF. Fred, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I appreciate your time for coming out here. He's got to go. He's busy man, got things to do. I'm Julius Cesar Santos. We'll see you guys. Adios.